Edward VI, the only legitimate son of King Henry VIII, and his third wife, Jane Seymour, was one of England's youngest monarchs. He ascended the throne at the age of 9, following his father's death in 1547, and reigned for 6 years until his untimely death in 1553. Despite his brief reign, Edward's rule was of great significance, especially in terms of the religious transformation he oversaw during the English Reformation. Edward VI's reign was marked by dramatic religious changes, political intrigue, and a shift in England's status on the European stage. As a child king, Edward's reign was shaped by his regents, including the Duke of Somerset and the Duke of Northumberland, who wielded considerable power on his behalf. The impact of Edward VI's reign on English history is still felt today, as it set the stage for the religious struggles and conflicts that followed during the reign of his half-sister, Mary I, and his later successor, Elizabeth I. Edward VI was born on October 12, 1537, at Hampton Court Palace, the son of King Henry VIII and Jane Seymour, the third wife of the king. His birth was an event of great importance to Henry VIII, who had desperately sought a male heir throughout his reign. Edward's arrival provided a sense of dynastic security and was seen as the fulfillment of Henry's hopes to secure the Tudor line for future generations. Unfortunately, Jane Seymour died just days after childbirth due to complications, leaving Edward to be raised in the shadow of his mother's death. As the son of Henry VIII, Edward was the heir to the English throne, and his early years were marked by a rigorous education, preparing him to eventually assume the throne. His education was overseen by the prominent scholar and religious reformer, Richard Cox, and he was taught Latin, Greek, history, theology, and music, among other subjects. Edward's education was designed not only to prepare him for kingship, but also to imbue him with Protestant ideas, reflecting the religious shifts taking place in England. Edward's ascension to the throne came after the death of his father in 1547, when he was just 9 years old. Henry VIII had passed away after a prolonged illness, and Edward's young age meant that he was not able to govern independently. Instead, a regency was established to rule on his behalf, with Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset, appointed as protector. Somerset was given vast authority and entrusted with the task of guiding the kingdom during Edward's minority. Edward VI's reign was defined by the regency that governed in his name during the early years of his rule. The regency was marked by a combination of political instability, factionalism at court, and sweeping religious reforms. The regents who held power during Edward's reign were instrumental in shaping the direction of the kingdom. The Duke of Somerset, Edward VI's uncle, was appointed Protector of England after Henry VIII's death. Somerset's reign as Protector is often described as a period of relative instability. While he pursued many of the reforms initiated under Henry VIII, particularly in the realm of religion, his administration was marred by political factionalism and his struggle to balance the various competing interests at court. Somerset was a committed Protestant, and his regency saw a continuation of the religious reforms initiated during the later years of Henry VIII's reign. Under Somerset's guidance, England took steps toward greater Protestantism, including the introduction of the Book of Common Prayer in 1549. This prayer book, which replaced the Latin Mass with English prayers and hymns, marked a significant shift in England's religious practices. The Book of Common Prayer was a central aspect of Edward VI's religious reforms, and its introduction signaled a departure from Catholicism and a move toward more radical Protestant ideas. Somerset's regency was also marked by economic and social upheaval. The country faced economic difficulties, including inflation, high taxation, and a series of rebellions. These issues, combined with Somerset's unpopular policies, contributed to his eventual downfall. In 1549, a series of rebellions, including the Western Rebellion and the Ketts Rebellion, erupted in response to Somerset's religious and social reforms. These uprisings were largely suppressed, but they exposed the deep divisions in English society. In 1550, after growing discontent with Somerset's rule, he was replaced by John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland. Northumberland's rise to power marked a shift in the balance of power in the regency. Northumberland was a more politically savvy and pragmatic figure than Somerset, and he sought to stabilize the kingdom by pursuing a more moderate approach to governance. Northumberland's faction also sought to secure the Protestant reforms that had been initiated under Somerset, but with less radicalism. One of the defining features of Edward VI's reign was the dramatic religious transformation that took place under his government. The religious changes were largely driven by the political and religious beliefs of the regents, who were committed to advancing Protestantism and further distancing England from Catholicism. Edward VI, though a child, was deeply influenced by the ideas of Protestant reformers and supported the religious policies of his regents. Under the Regency, several key religious reforms were implemented that reshaped the religious landscape of England. These included the introduction of the Book of Common Prayer, the Act of Uniformity, 1549, which established the Book of Common Prayer as the standard for religious worship, and the dissolution of the remaining monasteries that had survived the initial wave of dissolution under Henry VIII. The Act of Uniformity was a particularly significant piece of legislation, as it required all English churches to adopt the practices and prayers outlined in the Book of Common Prayer. This act signaled a definitive break from Catholic traditions, marking the official establishment of the Protestant Church of England. The Book of Common Prayer became a cornerstone of English Protestant worship, replacing the Catholic Mass with services conducted in English and featuring Protestant liturgies. Other notable religious reforms included the removal of traditional Catholic rituals and the redistribution of church lands, which had begun during Henry VIII's reign. Protestant ideas continued to gain prominence under Edward's regents, particularly under Northumberland's leadership, as the Church of England moved toward a more radical Protestant stance. However, these religious reforms were not without controversy. The Protestant shifts alienated many Catholics, leading to protests and resistance, particularly in the northern and western parts of the country. The religious divisions that were sown during Edward's reign would play a central role in the subsequent reigns of his successors, particularly during the reign of his sister, Mary I, who sought to restore Catholicism in England. The reign of Edward VI was also marked by political instability and social unrest. As a young king, Edward's inability to rule independently left his regents with significant power, which led to factionalism and political intrigue at court. The rivalry between Somerset and Northumberland, both of whom were members of the royal family, created a tense and unstable political environment. Somerset's fall from power in 1550, followed by Northumberland's increasing influence, exemplified the shifting political allegiances and the constant jockeying for power among the aristocracy. Economically, England faced significant challenges during Edward's reign. The country experienced inflation, increased taxation, and social unrest due to the economic strain. The rebellions of 1549, particularly the Western Rebellion and the Ketts Rebellion, were fueled in part by economic grievances, as common people struggled with high taxes, food shortages, and religious reforms they did not support. The suppression of these rebellions by Somerset and Northumberland highlighted the tensions between the monarchy and the common people. The socio-economic challenges faced during Edward's reign would have lasting effects on England's political climate, setting the stage for the political struggles that continued into the 16th and 17th centuries. The concentration of power in the hands of the nobility, combined with the struggles of the common people, created a volatile environment that contributed to the instability of the period. Edward VI died on July 6, 1553, at the age of 15, following a short illness. His death was a tragic end to a reign that had been marked by ambition, religious transformation, and political instability. Edward's premature death left England in a precarious position, as there was no clear heir to the throne. His death set off a struggle for the throne between his half-sisters, Mary and Elizabeth, both of whom would later become queens in their own right. Before his death, Edward VI had attempted to secure the throne for his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, a Protestant, in an effort to maintain Protestant rule in England. However, Lady Jane's reign was short-lived, as Mary I, the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, successfully claimed the throne and restored Catholicism in England.